Hello and welcome to the Goldenrod Podcast. I'm Ben, and I'm joined this week not by fellow Pokemon enthusiast Conor, who unfortunately has lost his voice. Instead, I'm joined by another Pokemon enthusiast, Sam. As always, we're bringing you some of the latest Pokemon news and a few laughs along the way. This episode, we'll be discussing the recently released footage of Scarlet and Violet's The Hidden Treasure of Area Zero DLC, which is an absolute mouthful, that was shown in the latest Nintendo Direct. We'll also be discussing Samsung's latest Pokemon-themed in-ear headphones, and in our Devil's Advocate section, we'll be arguing whether Mega Pokemon should return to the mainline games. As always, you can jump to a topic using the timestamps in the description below. First and foremost, Sam, how are we?
Not too bad, man. It is weird to hear you say my actual name. For those of you who know me from my channel, there's a running joke that I'm called Frank, but that is not my real name. It is Sam. So, But
which I don't call you Sam. I call you British,
and I call you
YouTube
Hohen.
name is British. Yeah, exactly. That we call each other by our YouTube names, which is really weird. So just the fact that calling you Sam, which even when we do YouTube stuff and I don't call you British, I will call you Frank if anything, if I don't call you British because of the running joke. It's just absolutely bizarre, but it's good to finally have you here on the podcast because I know that you've submitted questions and comments in the past, and we've discussed it. And a long time ago when we were setting this up, we were discussing, you being the third host of this as well, but you had a lot going on, so me and Conor just kind of ran with it. So I'm glad we've got you on.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. First of all, I gotta say, big fan of the podcast. I've enjoyed. I actually do keep up with it. Before we started recording this, Ben was like, "Yeah, do you actually be honest? Do you listen to the podcast?" I was like, "Yeah, I actually keep up with it." I really enjoyed the Gen 2 conversation about the, is it overrated or not? And shout out to Conor. Hopefully you feel better soon, dude. And I'll do my best today, so I'll try.
That's all we can ask. That's all we can ask. Let's move on to the first piece of news this week, that Samsung has released more Pokemon-themed Galaxy Buds that are very, very cute. So basically, these are just the cases that the in-ear buds come in. We've got a Snorlax face, we've got a Jigglypuff face, and then we've got Ditto, which is just full size because Ditto doesn't really have a face. It's just a blob, basically. And I'll leave a link to the photo down below so people can check this out. So you've got two basic versions. You've got the ones going for $99 and another more powerful pair going for $152. So what do you think of the design? Do you like them?
Yeah, so I actually don't dislike the idea of having Pokemon as a cover for these the headphone case. I actually had a Game Boy Advance cover from my old AirPods. The only thing, yeah, and it was actually really cool. I love it. I think I still have it somewhere. The only thing for me is the choice of Pokemon that they chose. So Snorlax is cool, but Ditto and Jigglypuff, I'm not saying we need more. I'm not saying we need more Charizard stuff or anything like that, but there are so many Pokemon. We're at 1,000+ Pokemon, and you chose Ditto and Jigglypuff. Really? That was my only complaint, but I don't know. It's
a bizarre mix of Pokemon because I was thinking, well, why not go for either a fire, a water, and a grass starter?
Yeah.
Because that is when you think of the franchise, you've got the three starters. Why not go for Pikachu? Because it is such a massive mascot in the series. And the only reason I can think that they've chosen these is just because they're quite easy faces to produce. Ditto's just a blob, so it's quite easy to create that. Jigglypuff is pretty much round, which makes it quite easy to do that, and Snorlax's face is quite symmetrical and easy to do. So I'd imagine that's part of the reason. And obviously Gen 1, who doesn't love Generation 1? And these Pokemon are quite well known even outside of Generation 1. So I think the colors are quite pleasing as well. So they're the only reason I can think of that. However, this isn't Samsung's first attempt at doing this. They in May 2022 they did a Pokeball container, and it is limited edition, sold out within an hour. So it is literally just the red and white Pokeball. It opens up and it's got the earpods on it, which I think I preferred the Pokeball, to be quite honest with you. I'm looking at, because like each of these Pokemon, the Ditto, except for the Ditto, they've kind of had to chop off a point and go, right, okay, this is the case. Whereas the Pokeball is just purely the Pokeball. Like, it's round.
Yeah.
It looks really good quality. It looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, the question I've got, would you ever use these?
I thought you were going to ask me what would be my 3 Pokemon that I would choose to make out of these, and I actually have an answer for you, which we can get to that at some other point.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess the thing that sticks out for me with Ditto is like, why choose a Pokemon without a head? Like, to your point, Snorlax and Jigglypuff have heads that you can make the face and it looks right. Ditto, you're just cutting its body in half. So it's, again, a strange choice. I do see what you're saying, though, with the generation. Like, it is Gen 1. Like, typically, Pokemon fans know these 3 Pokemon. I love the idea of the Pokeball one. I definitely, if I had this brand of headphone, I definitely would get the Pokeball one. I mean, like I said earlier, I had a Game Boy Advance one. I take my AirPods to work, and people commented a couple times, like, oh, that's cool AirPod case. But yeah,
So which three would you choose then?
So I think honestly there's only one way to go with this. It's Lopunny, Gardevoir, and Vaporeon. I feel like there's no better trio that you can choose for that.
There's certainly a demographic, the Pokemon fans that would like that. There definitely is, but I think they would be quite difficult to.
I think it'd be a hot commodity.
Very nice, very nice. By the way, you will have to show me that Game Boy Advance one that you've got at some point. Yeah. I'd love to see that. Let's move on to the main piece of news this week, which in the most recent Nintendo Direct, we got more footage of the upcoming DLC, the Hidden Treasure of Area Zero, which is split into 2 parts: the Teal Mask, which is arriving on the Nintendo Switch this fall, and the Indigo Disc, which lands later this winter. So we've not got long to wait. The trailer is roughly split into 2, although in terms of watch time, there is more time dedicated to the Teal Mask, which is the first DLC that's coming, but it's split into 2. So what we're going to do is we're just going to quickly break down some of the things that we saw in the first part, which is the Teal Mask, and then discuss the things that stood out to us, whether or not they are good or bad. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay, so the main takeaways for me is we get to see some of the overworld, including a mountain that bizarrely looks like a skull. You can see what looks like eyes, a horn, and some teeth. Now, I don't think that's a Pokemon or a Pokemon skull, but it's quite interesting that it looks like that. We also get introduced to some of the new characters. We have Kieran, who appears to be a young boy, and Carmine, who appears to be an older woman, and they're definitely related in some way because they have very similar hairstyles, whether or not they're brother and sister, mother and son, or part of the same group that wanders around. We got new outfits and hairstyles have been confirmed. We get quite a few returning Pokemon, including Sentret, Apom, Gligar, Corphish, regular Wooper, which is quite nice. And then we also get to actually see in-game footage of the new Pokemon that are coming in, including Munkidori, Okidogi, Pheasantipity, and Ogerpon. I think I've pronounced at least 2 of those right, but I'm sure someone will tell me that I haven't, because they are, it was Conor actually that told me how to pronounce it. I was like, okay, nice. that kind of makes sense. And then before we talk about what stood out, was there anything else that you saw that was like, oh yeah, I want to talk about that?
So the one thing I'd be curious to know is, for me, and this is kind of I think I'm kind of filling in for Conor here with the whole theory stuff, right? Is okay. So if you notice in the trailer, there's I don't know if this is the 4th legendary. You know how there's like the birds in Gen 1 and then Mewtwo is the 4th legendary? So there's the one that's wearing the mask and it has like this star diamond. The diamond to me makes me think there's somehow a connection between that mask legendary and the turtle. Somehow I think that because of its design and how it's more of a I think if I remember correctly, I'd have to look at it again. It's like it's the turtle shell is kind of like a diamond itself. I wonder if there's any correlation between that. But for me, the outfits stick out. It gives me very like Legends Arceus vibes, or Arceus, however you pronounce that. It gives me very Legends vibes, which I really like. I am not. And I'm sorry to all you diehard Gen 9 school uniform fans, but I'm not the biggest fan of the outfits or the uniforms. So to see these or this style coming in really stood out to me. I like it a lot.
Definitely, this is one of my little bugbears with the Gen 9 is, you got your school outfit, which makes sense when you start school, but then when they go off and do your own thing, why would I want to wear my school outfit? I wouldn't. So the fact that we get the opportunity to change it into something that isn't a school outfit, really, really like the fact that they've done that. And then just talking on the legendary Pokemon, the one with the mask, which I believe is Ogerpon, and the whatever it has on the mask. So that looks a bit like a Terra Crystal, kind of. And then the legendary Pokemon, the big turtle one, which is called Terrapagos, I think. I've probably butchered that. That seems to have some kind of gem on the back, and I hadn't noticed actually the two different things. And what'll be interesting to see is how connected these two pieces of DLC are, because the DLC for Sword and Shield, there was no real like connecting threads between the two outside of you just exploring another part of Galar. There wasn't any overarching narrative that flowed through. So it'd be quite interesting to see if this is the case for this. The fact that it's called the Hidden Treasure of Area Zero, and yet you've got these two elements which don't really seem to have anything to do with Area Zero at this stage, gives me hope that they are connected in some way. I'm hoping.
Yeah, agreed.
In terms of what stood out to me then, Poochyena has never looked so good. Like, the fur on this Pokemon, like, Poochyena is one of those Pokemon that Gen 3 I really didn't care for. I just didn't care for it whatsoever. But seeing it like, some Pokemon look better as a 3D model. Poochyena has got a massive blow up. It looks amazing. It looks fantastic up close. The fur looks beautiful. So I love seeing that. I loved the part of the trailer where they're in some kind of swamp and you see the Wooper and then a Yanma flies overhead and it looks absolutely beautiful. But I've been burnt by Game Freak before. This is unlikely to be in game. If this is in-game graphics for that part, I will absolutely eat my hat. Okay, because it just looked too good to unfortunately be in-game graphics. And then if I had one little nitpick for this, they say that it's a festival, and there's a clip where the main character is in the street where the festival is taking place, and it is deserted. It is empty. There are like 3 NPCs, and that does feel like in-game footage to me, because we've seen what the cities were like in Scarlet and Violet, where there was just nobody around a lot of the time. I hope that because this is a smaller part, and I hope it isn't loading assets from the mainline game while you're playing this, and I'm just hoping it runs smoother and they can populate it a bit more to make it feel a lot more lived in, which was one of the criticisms I had of Scarlet and Violet.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is weird how they do that in Pokemon, where like some areas are very populated, but then there's a ton that just has like one NPC, and you're like, really? What was the okay? Don't fill up the new area you've implemented into the game. No, I'm really curious about this. I think the big thing that stands out for me in the first part of the trailer, the DLC that I think comes out in the fall, right? Because the first one is fall, second part's winter.
Yep.
For the fall DLC, I'm really curious about these legends. I don't know how you feel about them, but I like the look of them. If I understand correctly, they're all dark types, or they have.
I think they're all dark. I think off the top of my head, but this is going back to a conversation that I had a long time ago. I think they're all primary dark, and then they have a secondary typing, but I don't know off the top of my head. I should probably check while you're talking more about the legendaries.
Well, and so while you're looking into that, what I also find fascinating is like, so they have the these like purple, I want to call them like beads, or like these like these things around them. If I recall, I think it's because they all have the same ability. It's like the toxic move where like isn't it something like if they land a direct contact or a contact move, it poisons the foe or they get contacted? So I'm assuming that's the reason why they all have that like purple chain or the
toxic chain. It's called toxic chain effect. So when a Pokemon with this ability hits an opponent with a move, contact or non-contact, the power of its toxic chain may cause the opponent to become badly poisoned. So it's a better version of Poison Point, it seems.
So they can poison non-contact?
That's a little bit
wow,
busty,
that
dude.
is insane. In a randomizer too, you get that on another Pokemon too. I mean, that's wow. But I do like that there's more representation with the dark type, I think is what I was going towards. I feel like, I don't know, I'd have to look back on how many we have.
I've just looked into this and the typings haven't been confirmed yet. They're still unknown. But there is speculation, obviously, poison typing because of their ability, dark type because of the common theme and dark elements of the design throughout all of them. I can't see them all being dark poison, but I think they might all be poison with a secondary typing potentially, but we don't know that at this stage. But the designs I wasn't too sure on when I saw the artwork originally. The only one I was happy with was Pheasantipity. However, seeing them all in game now, they work in a really weird way, and I can't explain why. And what I love about this trio is typically when you get when you have a legendary trio, they all look quite similar. Like the birds from Gen 1, the dogs from Gen 2, yeah, the Reggies, yeah, exactly that. They always have a very similar theme, and while there might be slight variations, for the most part, they all look quite similar. What I like is the three of these just like, other than, some of the dark elements and the poison chain, like there's nothing connecting these designs. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what role they play in the story. And I'm hoping they do play a major part in the story.
Yeah, and I'm, to add to that as well, and I think that's a really good point. Because when you look back at all the legends, they really are just all the same with just a different typing, and they have a slight different design, but it's not a massive change. With this one, what I'm curious about is like, how do they differentiate their stat totals as well? So like there's the one that I don't know the names as well as you do, but the one that looks like a kind of like an Incineroar. It's big, it's bulky, is that a slow attacking mon? And then like the one that's got the wings, is that maybe fast and also has like a lot of HP? Or the smaller one that has like the swept back hair, which copied my hairstyle, of course. It is is that one maybe a balanced mon? So I'd be curious about the stat total as well. But
yeah, they've been very tight-lipped on these Pokemon at the moment, but it doesn't surprise me. This is very much what Game Freak does with their games, as they slowly roll out more facts, more information, and then when you get to typically the last couple of weeks beforehand, they just go ham. I remember before Scarlet and Violet came out, the last month to 6 weeks before the release, we had new trailers to discuss every single week as they just ramp up the marketing of it. So we'll obviously get more information about these at a later stage. If you've not got anything else to talk about with that, shall we move on to this second part, which is the Indigo Disc?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
So we meet multiple characters. We get Lacey. We get Kyrano, I think. There's a very cool looking chef with red hair and a frying pan as a weapon, apparently. Love his or her design. Looks absolutely amazing. We get the back of somebody sat at what looks like some kind of table, wearing an amazing black and gold jacket with what's the dog Pokemon in Gen 9 called?
Fido?
That evolves. No, the other one. Mischief?
Yeah, something like that. Yep, you got it. Yeah.
Whatever the first form evolution of that jacket looks absolutely amazing. I'll be gutted if we don't get to see that. And I think my biggest takeaway from this is that I thought the Indigo Disc was going to be some kind of gimmick, some kind of item. But the Indigo Disc looks like an underwater park.
Yeah, that's what it looks like from what you can tell. And I'm curious, is it more of like a battle arena? Because when you go through the trailer, it starts off and like your character runs on this bridge, and then you go into the cutscene where there's like a battle in an arena. So is that all that it is, or does it expand into a whole other separate water island?
So
Yeah.
what it looks like, because I managed to take a screenshot of this, is that there is a part where it shows a crossing of 4 biomes. So you've got one that looks like deserty, you've got one that looks like a mountain range, you've got one that looks like a tundra, an icy tundra, and you've got one that looks like mountains with waters, beach, and your typical grass, and they all meet in one point, which is this cross shape. So I've got a feeling it's going to be a combination of the two. One part of it is, you can get to go around, you get to see all these Pokemon in these different biomes, and then there is probably some kind of, like, say, area where you can battle, because I did notice that as well in the trailer. And then the other takeaway is that we get to see in-game footage of Terrapagos, I think it is called, which is the turtle Pokemon, which has all the different typings on its back, which is theorized to have something to do with the ability to terrestrialize in this game. And like, it doesn't give that much away in terms of what this is, where it is. And again, the thing for me is, how do either of these two trailers connect with the title of the hidden treasure of Area Zero? That, like, I can understand if it was just the hidden treasure, because the whole premise of the game is go out and figure out your treasure, which might be, going out and taking on the Pokemon League. It might be going out and helping your friends. I could understand if this DLC was just called the hidden treasure, because it'd be like, the hidden treasure is like, this is another way you can experience the game, but it was hidden in the mainline game. So it makes sense, but I just don't understand why they've included Area Zero. And my hope with this is that we do get to discover more about Area Zero, because it's one of the parts of the game where I wish we got more of Area Zero, because it is such a interesting place to go, and it's just a shame that you don't get to go in the mainline game, in the main game, until the last 2 to 3 hours, and you're rushing through it the first time. You don't get to explore it at your own pace. So I would love that these two games, these two pieces of DLC, connect more with that original vision of Area Zero and finding out more.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know, to what you just said about like how the two DLC, it not only incorporates Area Zero, but like, does it open up anything in the mainline story? And also too, when it talks about the treasure, so is there something that is only obtainable through the first part of the DLC and then the second DLC, and maybe those, like, maybe it's 2 pieces of treasure that combines to unlock something else? I don't know. I'm really curious as well to find out what that is.
It's funny that you say that, actually, because I don't know how much you know about the new anime that has come out. So I've not watched it yet. Okay, so I've not watched it yet, mainly because it's you can only get the sub version. I want the dub version. But the two main characters, which are, I'm trying to remember now, Roy and Liko, I think. So one of them has a pendant of some kind, and the other one has an ancient Pokeball. And the fact that they have them in the anime, which is linked to Scarlet and Violet, and the fact that in the anime we've actually seen a version of Terrapagos, which is like a baby turtle kind of version, makes me wonder if, like you said, there's 2 key items, one that you get in each game, and then when you've got both, you find out more about Area Zero, what went on at Area Zero, what is currently happening at Area Zero. I really do hope that these pieces of DLC expand Scarlet and Violet, because while I love the DLC in Sword and Shield, they don't really expand the story of the mainline game.
Yep.
Like the Isle of Armor literally does it. It introduces a couple of new characters, a couple of new Pokemon, and that's about it. Other than, they open up the tournament, which you can get other characters to come along in. And then the second one gives you an extra piece of story in terms of Galar and what the Crown Tundra, like a little bit extra story, but it doesn't help to elevate the base game. And I'm hoping that this helps to elevate the base game by presenting or finding out more about Area Zero and tying it all together.
Yeah, and I'll be curious as well. So the turtle that, again, I'm terrible with names, so I'm really sorry, but the turtle that has all the different types on it in parts of its shell, right? So my questions would be like, does it evolve? And also, is the reason why all the typings are on this Pokemon is because it can terastallize more than once in battle? So does it have the ability where
Oh.
maybe its ability is called, you know, or like ultra terastallize, or I don't know what the name would be. That's a horrible name. Don't use that. But maybe maybe it's a name that's like that, and the ability of this Pokemon is going to be you can terastallize each each turn into something different. I'm sure there would have to be a drawback with that. I don't think that it would just be you can terastallize with no penalty, but like maybe there's something that allows it to continue, like, you know, the part of its shell lights up that is fighting type. You want to switch into fighting type, maybe it wastes a turn. But I'd be curious to learn more about that. And I do agree the story as well. I think it would make playing the game again really exciting if there was something that incorporated into the main story, and maybe somehow you don't have to like complete the game again to unlock part of it. Like maybe once you play the DLC, maybe it opens up other areas to when you want to replay the main story. I don't know. I'm very excited. I'm definitely going to be playing the DLC for this. This excites me more than what I had for Scarlet and Violet. So
Very good. Are you planning to buy the DLC, or you're on the fence at the moment?
I'll be honest, I am actually intrigued by the DLC, so I probably will. I enjoyed our Scarlet and Violet cage lock, not to plug anything there, but I enjoyed our series and I enjoyed playing the game. I've had no issues with it. I know there's a lot of bugs and there's a lot of, people have their issues in general, but I actually enjoyed Gen 9. It has opportunities, to say the least, but I like Gen 9. I thought it was good.
Yeah, Jen, like we did a review on this, myself and Conor, a long time ago. And we obviously, like you say, did a playthrough, literally released, a couple of episodes on the day release. And like, it was an enjoyable experience, and you could get what they were going for. It should have been better in so many ways.
Yes.
And the DLC, like, it is exciting me, but I'm on the fence because I was burnt by Scarlet and Violet because I expected it to be better than it was because the way the marketing kind of lied or hid things from you, and I'm just worried that they're doing the same thing with the DLC. So I'm still on the fence at the moment. Chances are I will have to buy it anyway at some point because my daughter will want to play it. Yep. So I will have to buy it at some point. I might even try and persuade her to go 50-50 on me because then I won't feel as ripped off. But like, nice. I'm waiting to see what else comes out, and unlike Scarlet and Violet, I will be reading reviews to find out a little bit more about what people say about it. Not spoilery reviews because I want to go into the story completely fresh, but I do want to know more about the quality of the DLC before I buy it.
Yeah,
so
makes sense.
Thank you. That's the wrap up of that. Have you got anything else you want to add before we move on?
No, I guess the only thing I would add as well is I actually don't mind the, again, going back to the outfits. I like the outfits for the other DLC part as well. I'm not a big fan of the uniform, the school uniform. So both of these for me, I'm pretty excited about. So yeah, we'll see.
Good. Fantastic. Let's jump into a question that we've had courtesy of Tony over on our YouTube channel. Oh, good old Tony, who says, speaking of Arbok, who in your... that must be a previous episode. Speaking of Arbok, who in your opinion is the most underappreciated Pokemon? I've actually got two of these if you want me to go first while you think.
That's a great question. Shout out to Tony. Yeah, you go first. So we have to pick two, right? That's what he said.
No, I've picked two. You can just pick one. It's if you've got multiple, you can talk about multiple. So the two for me that stand out, and I was like, okay, what Pokemon are underappreciated in terms of their gimmicks? So I went down the line of gimmicks. So Smeagol. I absolutely feel that Smeagol has been done dirty because its gimmick is absolutely fantastic. That every 10 levels it learns Sketch, and it can basically learn pretty much any move as far as I'm aware. Your opponent uses a move, you then use Sketch. And that ability should make it such a great Pokemon because of the randomness of it. And yet, it's terrible stats. And I don't even know its ability, to be quite honest with you. So I don't know its ability either. So it's a Pokemon that I wish got more love unfortunately. And my second Pokemon, again with gimmicks, is Castform. Like, Castform is just a running joke at this point, and no one really cares about Castform. But it was doing forms before forms were really a thing. Yes, we had Deoxys in Gen 3, which also had forms, but the difference was Deoxys's forms, I don't think were... Deoxys just wasn't a readily available Pokemon in Generation 3. It wasn't easy to get, whereas Castform, you get it as part of the story. It's got this interesting gimmick with all the different weather effects, and I wish they'd have continued to design Castform in a way that it became viable as an option. Like, the fact that, it's already got Fire Form in Sunny Day and you can spam Solar Beam or Fire type moves, and yet no one really uses it because it's just one of those Pokemon that, here's an interesting gimmick, but that's all it's really got going for it, which is a shame.
Interesting. So, okay, so we're going for like the very specific thing in terms of, or at least that's how you've gone with like the Pokemon that's
how
not
I've
good.
Gone. You don't have to.
So I think for me, man, it's tough without like looking at a Pokedex and like going through the list. I feel like there's a bunch of Pokemon that when I play Radical Red, I feel like there's Pokemon that people are like, oh, that's not very good. And I'm like, are you kidding? I love this. It's a great mon for this and that and this. Oh man, I wish I'd done some more research on this. I guess I would probably say a mon that's like, what was the question again? Was it underused or underappreciated?
Underappreciated.
So... I guess because I'm mainly a Pokemon, like I battle, like my whole focus with Pokemon and the reason I love it is for the battle aspect of it. For me, I guess I would probably say a mon that's maybe not talked about enough or appreciated enough. I would actually say Jellicent. And so for me, from a battle perspective, I like Jellicent for its typing. Water's really good. Immunity to like normal, fighting, gets healing moves, gets a really good move set in general. I don't know that the design necessarily makes me like, bounce off the wall because I'm excited about it. But just from, again, the reason why I love Pokemon, the battle aspect and the challenge of it and the Nuzlocke side of it, I would say Jellicent doesn't get the love that it deserves. Man, if I can pull up a Pokedex and like look at a list, hold on, I gotta
get through the entire Pokedex.
Here's the thing: your answer was so good that now I'm kind of like, gosh, like there's got to be a really good answer I can give to this.
There probably is. The thing is with this is that, like, every Pokemon is someone's favorite. So I've said Smeagol and Castform. There's probably somebody out there who would go, yeah, Smeagol's my favorite Pokemon. Like, not even a question. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Or the same with Castform. And like, everyone has a favorite Pokemon. Everyone has a Pokemon that they really just do not care about. That is one of the beauties of Pokemon, of, every single design appeals to somebody in some way. So that's why I went down from the gimmick point of view, because I was like, oh, okay, right, what are some of the gimmicks that just are underappreciated, and partly because they're underused, partly because I think Game Freak just kind of went, oh, this is an interesting gimmick, and then didn't really think about that Pokemon outside of the gimmick in terms of making it viable in competitions or Nuzlocks or anything else like that.
I actually do have one. I've been pulling up a Pokedex, looking through to try and find something I could go with. So this is something I never ever get to utilize or have ever used in a Pokemon game. I love the Zen Mode idea for Darmanitan. I think that it changes between like the little statue or it's the Galar Zen Mode, which is like the statue with like a snowman around it and the fire. I like that there are certain aspects of like a criteria a Pokemon has to meet to be able to change its form. So I believe Darmanitan gets the Galar Zen Mode through, for the Galarian one, I think there's like, it has to be hailing and you have to have the ability and it has to, there's aspects to it, but I think it'd be cool if more Pokemon had different forms. I know that we've obviously got like the regions, but I'm talking more like changes its, not necessarily its regional form, but like changes its form mid-battle. I think that's a really cool aspect that I think Darmanitan gets love in terms of it. There's people that love that Pokemon in general, but I think having more like, maybe not calling it Zen Mode, but for other Pokemon to have a mode based on the sun or like low HP and then it turns into this, or Kind of similar to, I guess the other Pokemon I think of off the top of my head is the fish Pokemon in Sun and Moon. When it's
Wishy-wash.
yes, when it becomes that bigger form, that and Darmanitan are the only two I can think of with those sort of forms. But I think with 1,000+ Pokemon, we could do with maybe more of that. So.
Yeah, and what I'd like about that is in battles of, oh, they've bought this Pokemon, that's kind of, oh, I don't want to set up weather now because that benefits them. Oh,
Yep.
okay, I don't want to get them below a certain point of health because, like, then they get a boost or, from their ability in their alternate form. Like, I would love to see more of that myself personally as well. Yeah, if you've got a comment or question, you can reach us by leaving a comment on our podcast on YouTube, by emailing goldenrodpod@gmail.com, or by leaving it on our Discord channel, or by using the hashtag goldenrodpod on Twitter. Sam, let's move on to Devil's Advocate. So, if you're new to the podcast, you don't know what this is. Basically, each week, me and usually Conor, but Sam in this case, will debate a controversial Pokemon topic. One of us will argue for the controversial statement, and the other one will argue against it. This week, we have settled on, should Mega Pokemon return to the mainline games? So we're only talking about, Generation 9, 10 onwards. We're not talking about Pokemon Go, Pokemon Masters, because the Mega Pokemon are in those games. We're talking about the mainline games. So Sam is going to be arguing that Mega Pokemon should return. I'm going to be arguing that they shouldn't return. So, Sam, do you want to kick this off?
I mean, yeah, if you don't mind. Okay, my argument for why they should return is when you look at Mega Pokemon in general, so we have a good amount at this point, right? Or a decent amount, I should say. But it goes back to what I said earlier. We're 1,000+ Pokemon deep. There are so many different megas that you could make that would make Pokemon really cool. So a really good example, and it would also help them with being more popular and viable in battles, is a great one is Sableye. Getting Mega Sableye, it becomes a much usable and more viable Pokemon. Mega Mawile is busted with huge power, pure power, whichever one it normally gets for its ability. I think it's huge power. Either way. But the point is that with Megas, there's so many designs that look so awesome. I personally love Shiny Gengar. Looks insane. Mega Gengar. Gardevoir looks awesome. I like that Mega. The designs just are so amazing. They take a Pokemon that you love and make it into this even cooler design. Now, it's, I'll be honest here. It's not always perfect. There are some megas that you're like, maybe they should have skipped that one. But there's just so many Pokemon we haven't had as megas. I've seen people on YouTube that have actually made their own megas, put them into the game, and they look really cool. There's so much opportunity. And I think especially when you look at like Pokemon that don't get evolutions. There are still so many, even going back to Gen 1, that still don't have an evolution. And I think if you're not going to give them an evolution, give them a Mega form and, make them even cooler than what they were originally. So that would be my main push, is that there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of Pokemon that deserve some more love.
Okay. So I think the reason they shouldn't return is, unfortunately, they've had their time, they've had their day, and I think we as fans want Mega Evolution back because they took it away from us, and that's the only reason why. I think if Mega Evolution was still a thing and the main gimmick throughout all these games, and we didn't get Gigantamax, Z moves, and terrestrialization, I don't think we'd care that much about the Megas, unfortunately, because Megas just don't work in terms of you've allowed one Mega in a battle. You have to hold the correct stone, which takes away some of the viability of these Megas in Pokemon battles.
I mean, that's the same thing with terrestrializing. You can only terrestrialize once. Yeah, same thing with Gigantamax.
But what I like about them is that you can still hold items when you are having to terrestrialize and use Mega Evolution, so it's a lot more competitively viable. What I like about terrestrialization and Gigantamaxing and Dynamaxing is that pretty much every single Pokemon can do it, whereas Megas just kind of feel like, oh, let's just pick the favorites. Like, there's no coincidence that, X and Y are coming out. Right, it's on a brand new console. How are we going to get people involved? You get to pick 2 lots of starters. Oh, we get to get Charmander, Bulbasaur, and Squirtle again, playing on nostalgia. Oh, yeah, and they get to have Megas. And, the fact that you get 3 starters and you get 4 Megas, like Charizard twice, Mewtwo twice, trying to edge the bets of, oh, if you don't like that Mega Evolution, we've got this other Mega Evolution for you. As if, like, for me, the Mega Evolutions were never about, okay, let's add viability or extra diversity with these Megas. It just very much felt like, oh, let's use this as a marketing mechanic to get as many people as we can into buying back into Pokemon that have moved away because, oh, look at all these there's no coincidence that the majority of Mega Pokemon are Generation 1, some from Generation 2, some from Generation 3, and then I think like 1 from Gen 5 and 1 from Gen 6 off the top of my head. And
I think there's more than that, but I get what you're saying, yeah.
But it was predominantly Generation 1, which makes you think it was just a marketing gimmick. And unfortunately, while I will admit that a lot of the designs are absolutely phenomenal, some of the designs are some of the best Pokemon designs we've had in a very long time, I don't think they change up enough. They just give, here's better stats for the most part, but the majority of Mega Pokemon, they retain the same typing with the exception of a handful that the typings change. Most of them just get the same typing, and what you get from them typically is just better stats. Whereas at least with Dynamaxing, Gigantamaxing, and Terrestrialization, there are strategies around those, like Terrestrialization. Oh, you get to change the typing completely. It's a fantastic mechanic that keeps you on your toes. And Dynamaxing just gives you a boost all round, but it's only for 3 turns as well. That allows you to play around that in terms of, okay, I just need to stall for 3 turns. Okay, their Pokemon is, un-Dynamax. Well, now I'm going to Dynamax and go on the offensive. Whereas Megas just felt a lot like, you get to Mega evolve one Pokemon in a battle, which might not actually help you, might actually hinder you in some regards because you can't then give them a better item. And some Mega Pokemon are actually worse for it. Like Garchomp actually becomes slower, bizarrely becomes slow, which actually hinders it. I'm trying to think what other.
So if you'll let me rebuttal that. So okay, so
go on.
So one of the things you had mentioned was like the they don't change enough as Megas. Pikachu just gets fat. So like the design for Dynamax isn't perfect either. And while I do like certain aspects of Dynamaxing and Terrestrializing also, if you want to talk about how Megas don't change enough, Terrestrialization literally just turns them into a crystal with a flower, fire, or a piece of water, a bottle of water on their head. Like, let's be honest, like if we're talking about changing how they look, Terrestrialization and Dynamaxing aren't perfect. Snorlax basically gets New York City Central Park on his stomach. Like, let's be honest, right? Like the designs, some are good for Megas and some are bad, but the same thing for Dynamax and Terrestrializing. The one thing I would say too, because you mentioned about like a held item, right? So I guess it comes down to, what would you rather have? A Pokemon that can have a held item and become strong for just 3 turns, or a Pokemon that doesn't get an item, but most of the time boosts its stats enough to make it so busted that it is hard to play around and kind of to deal with. And yes, obviously not having a held item because you use the Mega Stone can be a hindrance. At the same time, like the change to the Pokemon in terms of his stats are so big sometimes that it's worth it to not have that held item. And in some cases, you could argue that it's useful depending on moves that are being used. If you have a Mega Stone versus a regular item, it changes certain moves. Like I believe like Trick can't work because they can't take your like Trick is where they switch the held item around, I believe. You can't use that on a mon that's used the Mega Stone. So it's useful in battle in terms of stopping your opponent from stealing items and stuff like that. But I think for me, you were right about Gen 1, and that is predominantly where they focused on the Megas. But you mentioned X and Y and how there's 2 Mega Charizards and 2 Mega Mewtwo's. Well, the reason why we need more megas is because what if in the next game they said, okay, Venusaur just has a bigger flower on its head than the original Venusaur does, right? All right, we're going to give you a different Venusaur, a Mega Venusaur Y or whatever you want to call it. And this time it's got a different typing, or, it's got, I don't know, like it's a different form. Maybe it stands on 2 legs. Maybe it's like part flying or something. Like, I think there's so much opportunity to take Pokemon that we love and make them into these really cool Pokemon. And you're right, some of the designs aren't perfect, but I think that's why we need them back, because there is so much room to continue giving us more and more of the same Pokemon, but better versions of themselves. And that kind of extends Pokemon even further beyond us waiting for Gen 10, Gen 11, all that stuff. And I would also throw out, in terms of, you had mentioned before about how, like, it was a marketing ploy and, we only miss them because they're gone. I do agree with you to an extent that that's partially true. But where I would disagree is that we don't just want them back because we miss them. We want them back because they were such a cool feature. And I think that we did need a break from them. And so we needed Dynamax. We needed Terastallizing, which personally I love Terastallizing. It's probably up there with Megas for me. But I think that it doesn't make sense not to bring back Megas as well, because that then makes... Could you imagine a battle, right? A double battle where you not only have to worry about Terastallizing, but you have to worry about Mega Pokemon that can Terastallize, or, Gigantamaxing Megas, right? Like, there's so many ways that they could make it extremely challenging in battles, but also really creative and really fun. So I definitely think they need to bring them back for sure.
I can understand that. I think for me, like, I think that they've left it that long now without Megas, that if they then introduce it again, like Gen 10, Megas are back, that would have to be the only gimmick, because it would unfortunately overshadow whatever gimmick. Like, could you imagine if Gen 8 they took a break, and then Gen 9 it was, okay, we've got Terastallization, this brand new mechanic, oh, but Megas are back. Everyone would just be talking about Megas. All the news articles would be about Megas. And unfortunately, that's why they shouldn't return, because it will just overshadow whatever the new gimmick is. And Terastallization, I wasn't sure on Terastallization when it was first announced. I was like, okay, it doesn't look great, sorry. And you're absolutely right. Like, the fact that they just get a little bit of a hat and get a little bit shiny, like, it's not great. It's not a great design, but I can understand why they had to go down that route, because of the sheer amount of work if you were to do a custom Pokemon for each typing, for each Terra type. It'd just be overkill. But functionality wise, Terastallization works so much better than Mega Evolutions, because there is such a wide variety of usage. Like, Mega Pokemon, you throw out a Mega Pokemon, and for the most part they retain the same typing. Yes, their ability changes, and the stats improve, but for the most part you go, okay, I know how I need to deal with this Mega Venus, so I know how to need to deal with this Mega Gyarados, I know how to deal with the Mega Alakazam, because the typings for the most part stay the same. Whereas Terastallization, it is so random in terms of, okay, competitive battle, I'm fighting with somebody, they throw out an Arcanine, okay, this is absolutely fine, I go for a water type move, oh, they Terastallize into a grass type, oh, suddenly I'm at a disadvantage. Like, the fact that you bought out 2 back-to-back gimmicks in terms of Dynamaxing and Terastallization that put a huge spin on the battle mechanics and completely changed the battle mechanics in a revolutionary way, I just don't think you can go backwards to Mega Evolution, because it feels like the 2 new features that we've had in Gen 8 and Gen 9 are pretty much better in most of the ways, except for maybe design. I will admit, like, I do have a soft spot for the designs of Mega Pokemon, but I'll admit some of the Gigantamax forms I think are actually better. Like, when you look at Machamp, Machamp's Gigantamax form looks absolutely phenomenal. Charizard, the fact its wings are on fire, absolutely love it. I'm trying to think of some more off the top of my head, and I'm really struggling, which is a shame.
I've got a Pokedex up, and I'm looking at some of them.
Because like Butterfree, like the massive, beautiful wings that it has, and you mentioned Duraludon, like the fact that it becomes a skyscraper.
Yeah,
like. I absolutely I love that design.
You like it?
Oh
wow!
Okay. I actually, but that's the thing that we said earlier on is like some like a Pokemon appeals to as many people as it doesn't appeal to. Like you know the like Snorlax, for example, the fact that it basically just becomes a landmass. Yeah. Lapras with its beautiful shell. There are some absolutely gorgeous Gigantamax forms that I think are better than Megas. And I'm just looking at this. I didn't realize Corviknight got a Gigantamax form. Apparently, there's loads of little birds that fly around it. But like some of these designs are absolutely phenomenal, and I'd rather see them Gigantamaxing return over Megas simply because of the usability of being able to apply it to every single Pokemon except for Eternatus, and the fact that Gigantamaxing, you know, brings such unique designs to some of these Pokemon.
I think the only thing I would add to that is, so you are technically right about like, you know, there are, for the most part, Megas don't change their typing, but a good example would be like Altaria goes from Dragon Flying to Dragon Fairy. So you know, and that is a limited example, right? Or a rare example, but you've also got Absol Dark to Dark Fairy. So you now change up, if you Mega Evolve, the opponent, if they've gone for a dragon move on Altaria, it becomes Mega Altaria, it negates that. So it has that similar effect that Terastallization has, right? So you have a Garchomp on the field, you Terastallize to Steel, the Fairy Pokemon now does like, it's resisted to the Fairy type attack. So Megas have that same aspect of Terastallization, and also Terastallization, sorry. While it is unique and it is awesome and I love it, for the most part, typically, once you watch a couple of people battle competitively, you know that most of the time they're giving, again, Garchomp, they're giving it the Steel Terastallization. So, like, I don't know that people are actually... Oh, sorry, I was yelling in the mic there. I don't know that people are actually changing it up enough to where it's like, oh my gosh, what do we think, Pikachu's going to have? Well, most likely it's going to have flying to avoid ground. So I get that, but I think Megas do the same thing, just in a limited, a little bit less of a capacity. But I think I see what you're saying about if they brought Megas back, how do you avoid it being the main focus from the gimmick they're bringing in? And that's why I think the best way to introduce it would be in Gen 10, where you basically make this massive game, which obviously they would cram in 1 year and they would have a lot of issues with it day one because that's Pokemon. But I would love to see them incorporate, okay, Gen 10, we're going to incorporate Mega Evolutions, Dynamax, Terastallization, and there'd be some sort of setback where it's like, okay, if you do this in battle, you can't do the other two things. So you have to pick and choose, and that would make combat obviously insane to deal with, but it would make it a lot more fun. And there's also a way too, maybe you do some sort of thing where it's like, Mega Evolution, but it's like a step further where, somehow maybe you incorporate a third type. There's other ways they can bring Mega Evolution back, make it the new gimmick, and bring in new features. It doesn't just have to be, okay, well, we've given Gen 5 10 new Pokemon that can Mega Evolve. Maybe it's, yes, we did that, but we also all gave them new features or new abilities that we've never seen. There's ways to make the gimmick, I think, usable and exciting. So
very nice. I was going to ask for like a wrap up, but I think you've kind of given the wrap up there, to be quite honest with you. So I'm just going to ask the listeners, like, who do you think should Mega Pokemon make a return to the mainline games? And like Conor, sorry,
wow.
I knew I was going to do. Sorry,
all right.
I knew I was going to do that. It's because on the script it says Conor for the next part, and I knew at some point I was going to end up saying the wrong person's name. So sorry, Sam. But what I was going to ask is, have you watched the last couple of episodes of the anime where Ash takes on Leon or not?
So I've not watched the whole thing, but I've seen snippets of it from TikTok and just YouTube and kind of stuff showing up on my feed. Some of the fights are actually really good.
Yeah. So the reason I was bringing that up is because in what I liked about the anime that I believe they should bring to the games is exactly what you touched on, is that when Ash fights Leon, like they go, oh, you can use one of either Mega, Z move or Dynamaxing, and Leon goes, nah, we can use all of them. And Ash uses all of them in the fight. He Mega evolves, he uses Dynamax, and he uses a Z move. And I would love to see that in competitive Pokemon. I would love to see that. And while I think we can get it in Showdown, I'm not 100% sure. Like, the mainline games don't let you do that. And I really believe, like, Gen 10 should be, like you say, here's all the best features of all the Pokemon games you've had. Megas are in here, Z-moves are in here, Gigantamaxing's in here, Terrestrialization's in here. And I know that some of those are for their specific regions. Like, the reason you can only Gigantamax and Dynamax and Galar because of the energy that's there, but they could just write something to allow you to do that, and I would love to see that. So, Sam, are you up for playing a game?
Yeah, but I'm gonna be so bad. All right, let's do it. Yeah.
Perfect. In front of me, I have 3 Pokemon with 3 Pokedex entries each, but can Sam spot the fake entry? So, we're going to start with the first Pokemon this week, Smeargle. Pokedex entry number 1. It marks its territory by using its tail like a paintbrush. There are more than 5,000 different marks. Entry number 2.
Sorry,
Okay.
Wait. Sorry, real quick question. So you said Smeargle at the beginning, so I have to pick which of these 3 or which ones you've listed here matches Smeargle, right?
One of them is fake. So 2 of these entries are Pokedex entries that are facts. They are in the Pokedex. One of these is incorrect. One of these I've made up. That's what you're trying to guess.
Okay.
So entry number 2. Smeargle often fight over territory, constantly covering other Smeargle's marks, leading to some interesting artwork. And the final entry, it draws symbols all over the place to mark its territory. In towns with many Smeargle, the walls are covered in graffiti.
So I think what you've done is you've taken the second one and you've used parts of it from another Pokemon and incorporated Smeargle in the actual description. So I'm going with the second one. That's my logic on that.
Okay, that's not how I did it, but you're right. So congratulations, you've arrived at the right answer in a completely different way. But fair enough, 1 out of 1 so far. Well done, Sam. On to the next Pokemon, Castform. So, entry number 1. Castform's appearance changes with the weather. This Pokemon gained the ability to use the vast power of nature to protect its tiny body. Entry number 2. Its appearance changes with the weather. Recently, its molecules were found to be just like water. And the third and final entry. Weather affects its cellular structure. Artificial changes in the temperature do not change Castform's appearance.
I think it's got to be the third one, because the way you read that, it doesn't sound like it. There's something about it. The wording is giving me vibes of it's not an entry. Just there's certain words that were used there. I'm going to say entry number 3.
Well done. Yeah,
really?
Well done. I thought you said you weren't going to be very good at this. Like, Connor's going to watch this back and go, wait, you got 3 out of 3 on the first attempt. Like, what? Like, what am I doing wrong? Conor, this is how you play this game. So, the third and final Pokemon is Poochyena. Okay? Entry number 1. Poochyena refuse to hunt in packs. This lack of coordination will often result in them fighting each other as their prey escapes. Entry number 2. At first sight, Poochyena takes a bite at anything that moves. This Pokemon chases after prey until the victim becomes exhausted. However, it may turn tail if the prey strikes back. And the third and final entry for Poochyena. Poochyena is an omnivore. It will eat anything. A distinguishing feature is how large its fangs are compared to its body. This Pokemon tries to intimidate its foes by making the hair on its tail bristle out.
I think I've think I've heard that third one. I feel like I recognize that. Can you
I can read them out again if you
Can
want.
you read the first one again?
Sure. Poochyena refuse to hunt in packs. This lack of coordination will often result in them fighting each other as their prey escapes.
A clumsy Pokemon that travels in a pack? I'm going to say the first one. That doesn't make sense.
You got well done.
No way!
Well done. That's how it's done,
serious?
apparently. Well, yeah, I'm serious. You got all three right. Well done.
What do I win?
You win bragging rights. Well done. You can write down in the comments down below, tag Conor in it, and let him know that you are the master of this game. So well done, Sam. You got 3 out of 3 on the first go asking. Just don't come back on the podcast and you'll have the perfect record. Like, you'll never lose this record. Okay, so well done.
So I shouldn't say that you paid me and to get these questions right, and you gave me the answers in advance just so Conor can't have a better record than me. Should we not talk about that?
I don't know why you'd say that, because it's obviously not true at all. I did not pay you at all. Right? Yeah, this part will not be in the podcast. We've had another question in this week from Conor, funnily enough, because I wanted to make sure he had a part on the podcast despite not being able to be here, unfortunately. So he asks, now that we've had curries and sandwiches in game, what Pokemon would taste the best and how would you serve it? So I misread this question. I only read the first half of this question, which is now that we've had curries and sandwiches. So I just thought, okay, what's the food mechanic for the next game? So I've actually written down a note of milkshakes and fajita style.
I was thinking that too. Actually, yeah.
but what he actually wants to know is, what Pokemon are we cooking and how are we serving it?
Wow. Okay, I'll let you go first on this. I have no idea.
So the easy answers are obviously Pokemon like Tauros and Miltank, which have real life equivalents. And I'm pretty sure we've seen a Magikarp like chopped up in the anime in the very first season. But I kind of feel like I want a list of Pokemon that we could potentially like go through and figure out, okay, because like actually bug Pokemon, like people eat bugs in real life, like you deep fry them or whatever you do, and actually like I feel like there's something about Scizor, or no, not Scizor, Scyther or Heracross that I feel like deep frying them, they might be quite tasty in a really bizarre way. I'm trying to think what else
I
would
could see that.
good.
I think Scizor would be a little bit of a metallic, a nasty kind of meal to have. So I wouldn't go with Scizor. I guess. Oh man, because when you were reading the question, I was thinking the same thing. Like, oh, okay, we've got to figure out like a type of food, like a milkshake or something else. But no, we're just cooking Pokemon. The one thing I was thinking of was like, if you want something like super meaty, like a Wailord, there's a lot of it, and so you could maybe like, I don't know, like grill it or something.
But where do you draw the line? Because so the Pokemon that have real life equivalents are like, yeah, that's just normal. But am I a bit sadistic? I was like, yeah, I wouldn't mind trying a Machamp. Like, do you not think that's a bit weird because of how like Jinx? It's so humanoid that. Does it cycle back around to being cannibalism? I know it's a Pokemon, but
it's a good question. I'm looking at a list right now. I think there's some really good options. I mean, yeah, it goes back to like all the fish Pokemon are obvious, right? So you'd eat like things that have like the scales and stuff. That makes sense. I'm wondering for like, trying to see.
So
I don't know. I'm torn on this.
One I've got is Galarian Ponyta, because there's just something about that I can imagine it being one of those things where, oh, you've chopped up one of these Pokemon, you served it to me. This is disgusting. I'll try it, and then just be like, this is the most magical thing I've ever tasted in my life, and just falling in love with the taste of how that Pokemon tastes.
I don't know about you. I like mushrooms. I eat them with different
Okay.
meals, right? Shinotic, it has a fairy aura to it. It's got like there'd be like a, I guess, flavor to it because it's got a lot of spore moves. I like mushrooms, so maybe you could make it on a sandwich or something. Man, this is not a question I'm used to answering, so I have no idea. I
Because
think I'd
some
probably
of them,
go. Oh, you know what? The easy answer as well could be Flapple or Appleton because it's like an apple pie. So
that
that'd be
works.
pretty
That
good.
works. And then there are some Pokemon I just can't see, like Probopass. It's Rock and Steel. Like you're not in that Ghost types. Like how do you even eat like Ghost types? It just doesn't. I just don't understand how that would work. And I'm just probably doing the same as you, scrolling through the list of Pokemon, and like the obvious ones are like Ducklet. It's just a duck, or Vanillite's kind of like an ice cream. So would that
You know what I just thought of?
work?
You made a great point about ghost types. I imagine it'd be like dry ice. You know how it's like you can kind of not necessarily taste it, but like it's got it's potent enough to where you can like feel it and smell it. It's strong enough. So I wonder if you like, I don't know, bit into like Spiritomb or like to like sucked in spirit. Okay, we're getting into a weird spot here, but basically I'm saying if you suck on Spiritomb, maybe you get some like flavor. I don't know. We're going in a weird way here. But yeah, no, I wouldn't eat a rock steel type either. I I don't know. I think Wailord, Appleton. I would be curious to try like Dondozo. Setitan, like an ice
Oh
Pokemon,
yeah.
could be like like a ice cream or something, depending on how that works. It's a great
There you go.
question.
There are your your answers, Connor. So we're getting towards the end of the podcast. Is there anything, Sam, that you want to plug over on your channel?
Yeah. So right now, myself and Professor Hoenn, aka Ben, we are doing a Pokemon three-way versus in Pokemon Emerald Crest, which is a really hard version of Pokemon Gen 3. So go check that out. But I've also got 2 solo Let's Plays going on. I am currently uploading for the Star Wars Survivor Let's Play that I'm doing, which is a ton of fun, and Ni no Kuni, a blind Let's Play of that. So go check it out if you like those games.
Very nice. Is Jedi Survivor as good as, if not better than the original?
It's hands down better. They improved every part of the first game. I am a really big Star Wars fan. I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest around, but I love Star Wars, and the first game for me hits really hard because I am a big fan of the lightsabers, the Force, and the dark side, and that's what these games that's what both these games give you. I'm not one of the people that loves like the space shooting. Like I don't hate it, but it's not what I come to Star Wars for. And so in the first game, they gave you a lot of the Force, lightsaber fighting. And in the second one, they improve all of the combat, which I already loved. They improve the Force abilities, the boss fights, the story's really good. So yeah, very, very fun game.
Good. I wanted to check it out. I've got such a long list of games that I need to check out, and that is one of them. At some point, I don't know when I'll get around to, but one day I will. And that's the show for this week. If you've gotten this far, you're just a top dollar, aren't you? Sam, where can we find you?
You can find me at my house at my address, which is
in the description down below.
Description down below. But no, you can find me on YouTube, which is my name is the British Eagle. Some people call me Beagle, British, or Frank. You'll have to ask other people about that. And you can find me on Twitter as well. British_Eagle. And then also my Discord, which I'm assuming you can also find on my YouTube channel. So, yep.
There you go. And we'll put all those in the description down below so people can, hopefully come along and, subscribe to this guy. Subscribe to him over on YouTube. And subscribe to us as well on YouTube. I'm Ben. You can find me as Professor Hoenn Gaming on YouTube and Professor Hoenn on Twitter. As for the Goldenrod Podcast, you can find us on the usual platforms. Search for Goldenrod Podcast on YouTube or on your usual podcast app. Leave a like on YouTube or a 5-star review if you're listening as a podcast, just like Sam's going to do after this episode. And we'll be back next Friday for another week of Pokemon podcast content. See ya.
I don't know. What do I do?